Hi, everybody. Hi, welcome. Welcome to the stream. Today, I am not skonging. Instead, I'm going to talk about some things that I've had issue with in regard to skong. Last night, so yesterday I beat the game. I woke up in the morning and the morning, quote unquote. I woke up at like 11:30 a.m. and I got up and I played skong and I beat the final boss in 3 attempts. It was really not that hard of a fight. It was just 4 in the morning and I was miserable. And then immediately after beating the boss, I recorded that, and then I recorded my tier list, my Silksong boss tier list that I said I would do. But since I did it off stream, I figured I would show that as well. And then last night, I was sitting here thinking, and I was like, man, I've got a lot of questions regarding Silksong that I can't find the answer to online. I can't find the answer. And I did this like hour and a half long dive into the wiki and Reddit posts and Steam community posts and all this stuff. And even like this other website I'd never heard of. Can't even remember the name of it, where people were discussing the game and the story. And it seems to be that this is a common thing, that some people think they understand the story and some people think they understand the like why events happened, but nobody is really coming to like a definitive conclusion. And so I'm going to show my tier list first. Here it is. All right. I already did it, and I was going to redo it for stream, but when I loaded up the website, it had everything cached. So I'm just going to go down rank by rank. So, of course, S tier for me, this is probably going to be obvious, but Widow, Cogwork Dancers, and Lace 2 were peak. They were the most fun I had with the game. I got my ass kicked by Widow, I got my dick kicked in by Lace 2, and I fucking loved them. And then Cogwork Dancers, I think, might be my number one, like top of the top. Some other bosses that I thought were really, really good, but didn't really make it into like that big tier. First Sinner is not S. This is First Sinner, right? So First Sinner is not S because it's just Widow again, but a little bit harder with a little bit of a moveset switch up. It's just, these bosses here are just Nightmare King Grim, but this one happens first, and this one happens second. And there's a problem in Silksong that a lot of the bosses are just repeats, rehashes of Hollow Knight bosses with way more moves, and then they just do them 2 or 3 times. Like, I'll get to that with why the final boss is D tier, but that's why I think Lace 2 is peak, but Lace 1 is B. Final boss true ending in D is diabolical. I know, let me get to it, okay? This boss, I don't even remember the name. I loved this boss. I really wished they had done more bosses like this, more bosses that are more of like in the environmental hazards. Like, yeah, this boss was an enemy you could hit. Hi, Makire, welcome. It was an enemy you could hit. It was a head sticking forward, but it felt kind of like a God of War boss, like a God of War boss where the entire like arena is the enemy kind of thing. You know, I really, really liked it. And I think if they had gone with more bosses like this, instead of just these like humanoid you versus a big enemy, you versus an enemy that flies around the room or whatever, this would have been a much better game if there were more like huge bosses that are in the background and they attack the foreground. Where are all the gank gauntlets? This is just bosses. This is just bosses. The only gank gauntlet boss that I enjoyed was the Craw boss. The only one that I genuinely enjoyed was the Craw boss. I don't know what it was about this fight. I didn't think it was that hard, even though when I got to Craw Lake, I thought that the birds were super annoying because they fly right out of your range. But I really liked this boss. It had a lot of whimsy. It had a lot of like humor to it, and he wasn't overly hard. I didn't even need tools. I think I barely used tools in this fight. Uh, I thought this boss was fantastic. I'm going to update my tier list. I think this is an S tier boss right here. I think this is an S tier boss. This boss, I think I'm going to move down to B. I'm adjusting my tier list. I made this yesterday, and I uploaded this to YouTube, and I think I'm going to move this down to B. This boss rules, but the runback sucked, man. And the runback isn't as bad as some other areas of the game. To be fair, I think I agree with most of it. Well, if you disagree with any of it, let me know. I will explain why things are in the places that they are as I go through this. This boss rules, by the way. I really like the final boss. The only problem is it's not the final boss, and it's a little too easy. I was expecting Radiance, and I got like somewhere in between Hollow Knight and Radiance for this boss. Somewhere in between. It's like they elevated the Hollow Knight to be a godlike being like Radiance. And I understand that she's like super old and super weak, and so she's not going to be like full power like Radiance is going to be. So narratively, I understand. I thought it was kind of a disappointing fight. I thought it was really fun and cool, and she had such cool moves and such a good design, and I really liked like the way that she, similar to why I liked this boss, because she kind of swept across the whole field. She was like in the background, attacking in the foreground where we were, and I really, really liked that. But it was an easy fight, and it was kind of lackluster at the end, especially since you beat her 2 times. You beat her at the end of Act 2, and then you beat her again at the end of Act 2 after you get the trap. And it's just not as, like, engaging as I wished it were. This fight is super good. It's like a cricket, like a what are they called? Jerusalem cricket? Growl, not in F, and Outrage. Which one's Growl? This one? This one's Growl? I'll get to that. Great boss fight, but annoying run back. Every time I felt like I was getting in a groove, I had to do the run back, and if I messed up the run back, it would mess up that attempt, and I knew that attempt was just, it was going to be over. It was done. Lace 1 was a super fun fight, great introduction to the character. However, it felt kind of like the first time you fight Hornet in Hollow Knight, and retroactively fighting Lace 3 times and the moveset barely changing except just getting more annoying makes this a worse fight retroactively. This fight is still S tier. It was probably the most fun I had fighting a boss in this game. But because you have to fight her 3 separate times and it's the same fucking fight 3 times, really, really lowers this for me. This fight, I wanted to like this fight a lot better, but the problem is that this fight is just Morwing. It's just Morwing, except this time she's a sexy lady with more spike abilities. It's just Morwing, except instead of flying just out of your reach, she's constantly dashing around. And then forcing you to do the little gauntlet fight, even if the gauntlet fight wasn't that hard and I was ending it with either full HP or 1 missing mask, forcing me to do the gauntlet fight before every single attempt of the boss was like just disgusting. Just disgusting. I think what disappointed me about Grandmother Silk with the trap is that nothing changes in the fight. It's just when the fight is over, one thing changes. Yeah, the only thing that changes is that Lace pops out of nowhere and fucks up our attempt to Satoru Gojo her from Jujutsu Kaisen and knocks her down into the void. That's the only thing that changes. The whole reason that Act 3 happens is because fucking Lace decided to interfere, which I'll get to that. This fight only took me 1 attempt. I wish this area were bigger. I actually really liked this area. It was super cool and beautiful, and like the boss fight was kind of fun. And I wish that they had spent more time. These bosses, I'm finding now that I'm talking about this more for a second time, because I've already done this. I already recorded this, like I said, and now I'm just doing it again on stream. Hi, Ari. What are we going to... Hi, Ari. Well, I'm just doing a tier list. I'm not spoiling anything, except for I am going to spoil the final boss, okay? And then after I do this tier list, I'm going to talk about my issues narratively with the game. Anyway, hi, Ari. Welcome. Hi, Alex, by the way. Lost Lace at D. Yeah, I'll get to that. I really like this boss. And so I'm finding now that I'm talking about this again that my favorite bosses, this one, and what else? Grandmother Silk. Some of my favorite boss fights were these like big environmental things where you have to dodge like the whole room is the enemy basically, and you have to, it's all about positioning and it's all about timing, and I really like that, other than just dodge a billion attacks and then you get one hit in, or you have to maximize your hits with tools and fucking silk skills, and it's like I don't want to do that. I like this type of combat. The more I think about this fight, I think this fight's S tier actually. I think this fight is legitimately one of my favorite fights. Such a good fight. And I think that's why I like Cogwork Dancers so much, because of the way that the boss fight moves around the room, and you just, it's like a marvel to watch, you know? If I were to arrange these in order, I think it would look like this. I think this is my number one fight. And then it goes like this, down. And then it goes like this. Okay, so Trobio, from the bosses I know, this tier list is based. By the time you finish the game, Ari, if you do finish the game, like all the way up to true ending, you may feel different. So Trobio I liked, but my problem with Trobio is the flashbang. It's so bright, and there's so much going on, and like I can see it. It's not like I'm that old and I can't differentiate the moves, but there's just so much shit flashing in my face. I can't pay attention. You know what I mean? It's so frustrating. Lace 1, I've already kind of said this, but Lace 1, I really, really like, because of how much it felt like Hornet, because of how much it reminded me of Hornet, but I might even drop it down to C tier. I think I am going to drop it to C tier. And the problem is, you fight her too many times. You fight her too many times. And even though I like Lace 1, retroactively, I don't like Lace 1. Because you fight her too many times. And the moveset doesn't change, except get more annoying. Right before Lace 2, I believe. Okay, Ari, you are about halfway through the game. That's what I'll say. So you will not understand. I may spoil kind of a lot for you, to be honest with you. This is the tutorial boss. Tutorial boss is tutorial boss. This was actually not that bad of a fight, but this boss gets reused, I think, 3 times. And the second time you fight him at the very top of Hunter's March, where it's a gank fight, was one of the worst gank fights I fought at that moment. I recognize a good amount of them, though, so I did a lot of exploring. Okay, good. So you're doing a different playstyle than I did. This fight was okay, I guess. It was just the same move over and over again. This fight was a tutorial boss, and it doesn't really mean anything. Not gonna lie, it's just a jump and pogo and jump and pogo. This boss fight was almost just to teach you how to pogo with Hornet's weird hunter pogo. This fight was kind of the same thing, where it's like you can't just sit there and pogo continuously. You have to pogo and then kind of like, she has a floatiness to her before she even gets to floatability. She has like this kind of, you know, lesser gravity after she pogos, where she kind of hovers and does a little flip, and you have to like pogo, then hover, then pogo, then hover. And so I think these bosses are kind of just tutorial bosses, you know, with this one being the hardest one. This is a very boring fight. D tier, actually, now that I think about it. And weirdly enough, I hated, as you can see, F tier. What is this even called again? What is this boss called again? The bot fly, rage fly, fat fly? I can't remember the name of it. But the first one was a terrible fight. And the reason that it was a terrible fight is because it's in a tiny arena and there's Savage Beastfly, thank you. Savage Beastfly. There's way too many ads. And there's not enough room for you to safely pogo or safely punish or safely dodge or safely heal because there's just too much shit in the tiny little room. And his hitbox is too fat. But then when you take it to this guy's arena, and there's way more vertical height, there's way more horizontal length, there's more platforms to stand on, and there's less ads because they gave you less ads because they wanted you to focus more on how the floor is being destroyed. This became a much better fight. It went from one of the worst fights in the game, to actually a pretty good fight. Just by changing up. This is my personal tier list. Just by changing up what you are focusing on in the fight. It's all about positioning. It's all about, okay, well, I need to bait out the headbutt attack so that I can bait it over here, breaking these platforms so that I have room to stand over here so that I can focus on jumping and pogoing. This fight, I actually think I'm going to make this fight a D from C. Forgettable. It was a forgettable fight. It felt like I was fighting like kind of a lamer version of Lace. A forgettable fight, man. Like, I didn't really like it. Hot take for real, for real. Oh, I need to add an emote. I forgot to do that. This fight, D tier. I'm changing it. D tier. Now we're on to Seth. So Seth was a good fight because he's different than almost everything else. I mean, it's a pretty lame fight, but the cinema of it is pretty nice. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's just forgettable, man. It's forgettable. It was like an okay fight. I think it took me like 3 attempts. And narratively, she doesn't really fit in a lot of ways. Like, she doesn't really make sense to be there. I only found out why she's even in the game when I was trying to research the questions that I have that I will be showing. Seth, my problem with Seth is they gave him a shield. He has a lot of moves that have a lot of range, either AoE effect or can hit you from far away. And so you are zoned heavily in this fight. You are not given any opportunity to hit him. And then when you finally get opportunities to hit him, he just blocks your attack and you deal nothing. And I think that this is a unfortunate consequence of the way that the parry works in this game, where a parry is literally always a negative. It always blocks the enemy from being damaged by your hit. It always puts you in a negative position because there's end lag to the parry, which the enemy does not care about because there is no hyper armor. There is no knocking them out of their attacks. There is nothing except for you have end lag and can't move away because you get put into this weird like slowdown after a parry. So you can't like immediately punish after a parry, like, oh, I blocked their attack, now I get an attack. It doesn't work. There's no hype moment to it. There's no counterplay. I parried, that's bad. And Seth, because he attacks and you can parry him, hold on. Oh, sorry. Because he attacks and you can parry, he can parry, really is what's happening, is they are parrying you. He also has a shield, which acts as a parry. Thank you. It was very sudden. He also has a shield, which acts as a parry. A mini stagger for parries would be great. Yes, if it just did like a little bit, so that like after a successful parry, I could throw out a very fast pogo. Like if I had that would make the hunter crest a lot more functional to me, because it has a very fast downward diagonal attack, meaning if I get a parry while trying to pogo and they have like a micro stagger where I cancel whatever animation they're in or something, or I force them to take it like first, just a second, and then I do that pogo and it downs into them, I would use the hunter crest more, probably exclusively, because that is literally, they made the parry window bigger in this game, so it's easier to get parries, meaning that I could punish more with that combo. Parry, pogo, right? But they didn't do that. They didn't do that. Instead, it's literally just a negative. It's literally just a punishment for you timing your attack at the same time as their attack. Something that is good in literally every other game that has a parry. It is bad in this game. And it is tenfold with Seth. A good boss with a unique real-life story turned into something frustrating because you can't fucking hit him. This boss, forgettable. I'm putting it down to D. Forgettable. This is just Savage Beastfly, except this time she also explodes. And so you can't just, like, hang over by a wall and continuously pogo her because she explodes this time now. And also, there's no floor. So actually, I think this boss is an F. The parry is just a damage denial on behalf of the boss. Yes. This boss... Silksong has a major problem of taking bosses that are mediocre or okay at best and just repeating them over and over again. Like Morwing, Scarletta, that's her name, right? Ari, you haven't seen this boss. This boss is just Morwing again. This boss is just this boss again. This boss is just this boss again. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why this boss isn't as interesting to me, even though it's a good fight, because it's just Widow again, except this time without dropping bells on you. This time she does some other bullshit. They repeat bosses over and over and over, and instead of having 51 bosses, you could have cut all these dumbass bloatfly, Savage Beastfly copies and given me something way better. Just cut them. They aren't necessary. I don't need a billion gank fights. I don't need a billion repeats of the same bosses or mechanics over and over. I don't need a bunch of Nightmare King Grims or a bunch of fucking Hornets, but this time they're lace. You know what I mean? Or just make the game smaller. Yeah. Or just make the DLC like it was supposed to be. This really feels like a DLC that they kept adding content to, and they just kept repeating bosses, but slightly changing and giving them more annoying movesets. This boss sucked. This boss, just a repeat of the same bosses before. Both of them are D tier because they both suck. They shouldn't have been bosses. This boss, the reason why, Mickey Ray, it's not F tier, is because I actually thought the boss had a lot of whimsy to him, but there are a lot of things that took him down. If there was no gankness to it, if there was no gank fight before or during his fight, he would have been probably a B-tier boss for me. But because of all the gank bullshit and the floor being maggots, which take away your silk, it's D-tier. But it's not F-tier because there was a lot of whimsy to him. He was kind of like an interesting boss. This boss, F tier. This boss, F tier. This is just Savage Beastfly. No, this is just Savage Beastfly mixed with all the fly, the disgusting fly enemies from the slab. This boss was fun. I thought it was okay. It was super easy though. It was just not even that interesting because it was like a very, very simple, okay, you just pogo and then dodge, and then you just pogo and then dodge. It felt like that one move from Radiance where the three balls, except that's the entire fight. And this time they explode and they deal double damage. You know what's great about almost all your F-tier bosses? I skipped by DNFing. Okay, so Sister Splinter, I think very rightfully belongs in D tier. Just an annoying fight made worse by ads that deal double damage with big 2-hit combo moves. The big D tier because it's just Savage Beastfly with no ads. It's just Savage Beastfly with no ads. This guy, this is the gauntlet fight where you have to fight a whole bunch of Citadel enemies and then 2 of these. That gauntlet fight made Gage really upset. I watched him live and he did not like this fight. I got through it somehow. I must have been on my gamer shit for some reason. This is below F crawl. This fight was just okay. I don't know. This is like a gank fight that was like felt like an actual challenge. Now, if they were to cut all of the other dumbass gank fights, and this was just the gauntlet fight you had to get through. This was the gauntlet fight of the game. Like, this was the big, long one, and it's for the song, you know what I mean? This would have been a perfectly fine gank fight. Do you understand me, Rinka? Like, if this was one of, like, 3 gank fights in the whole game, this would have been a totally fine gank fight. This would have felt like an arena from, a fool's arena from Hollow Knight. Wait, is this the Halls thing? Fuck this bitch-ass fight? I got through it, man. I don't know. I must have been on my gamer shit. Yeah, but it was right after the best section of the game, and it's for a major plot point. I don't know, man. It's D. It's D for me. I don't think it's as bad as F. Like, the F stuff is like, why the fuck is this even in the game? You know what I mean? It's Z for me? Bruh. Wait, the big Awu was a boss? I remember I freed one of those and they counted as a boss. Yeah, there's only one of them. And it's basically just Savage Beastfly. It's basically just Savage Beastfly. He just does Savage Beastfly's moveset, except he's a big Awu. Okay, Trobio 2, I didn't even finish. Because it's just Trobio 1, except this time brighter and harder to see, and he's faster, and his explosion, there are more explosions and they're bigger, and it's just a nightmare fight. And I wanted to like it because I like Trobio. He's very flashy and memorable, but his second fight punished Trobio so trash, dude. So trash. Just, I couldn't even see what the fuck was going on. And I was like, I'm not putting up with this shit. Same for this fight here. This fight, Ari, this is a spoiler. It is the same as this fight. Cogwork Dancers, except significantly worse. I didn't need another Cogwork Dancers. Cogwork Dancers ruled. Green Prince, boring. Boring, 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 annoying. Boring, annoying. Boring, annoying. And then they had a move that's like almost undodgeable, where you just get sucked into his fucking whirlwind. Never freed him. You'll eventually have to free him to progress the game. This, I didn't even realize when I was making this tier list, bro, I didn't even realize this was a boss fight. This was just like a horrible, dumb enemy that felt like a placeholder enemy that they left into the game. Like, this was such a shit enemy. I didn't even register it as a boss fight. It's literally hide, jump, hit, hide, jump, hit, over and over for like 15 hits. And then he dies, and that's it. That's the fight. This is the second one. So first you fight 2, and then you come back and you fight 1. Stupid. Literally shouldn't have been in the game. This fight fucking sucked. Boring fight. It literally is just one move. He has one move, and then sometimes he'll do a second move, which just comes out of nowhere, and he takes literally like 45 hits, maybe even like damn near 60 hits to kill. This fight, okay, another thing that Silksong has a problem with is so many flying enemies, which I get it. They're bugs. They're bugs. They fly. I get it. That's fine. It's fine for there to be flying enemies. But the flying enemies in Hollow Knight were some of the worst enemies. And they fucking just made every enemy have the ability to fly just out of your reach. So you have to only attack them by reacting to their attacks. Like the enemy who throws the fucking bell and it jing, 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 jings around the fucking off of every platform and hits you no matter what. That's the worst ad enemy in the entire game. And they decided to just make that this boss. And I gave up. I was like, fuck this boss. I'm not fighting this shit. Fuck it. It sucks. Ari, this is another boss that you haven't encountered yet. It's very, very far into the end of the game. It is optional. When you see this boss and you're like, man, fuck this boss, it's called the White Stag or something, you don't even have to fight it, Ari. Don't even bother. This boss sucks. It has one move and it teleports around the screen. You can't even hit it most of the time. It's so trash, Ari. This boss is at the end of a triple gauntlet, and then every attempt you do, you have to fight through his gauntlet, and then the boss fight is kind of shit. Like, when I fought him, I thought he was okay, but looking back on him, the boss fight's really boring. Same for this boss fight. kind of boring. This boss fight fucking sucks. And this boss fight fucking sucks. Okay, so now, Ari, if you want, I'm going to spoil the final boss, okay? I'm going to spoil the final boss. I'm going to talk about my thoughts on the final boss now that I have beaten it yesterday. You can just mute or whatever, and then I'll change it up when I'm done. You'll see some change on the screen. But okay, final boss. So final boss is D tier, specifically because I have a lot of problems with the final boss. Hold on, before I talk about the final boss, I'm going to talk about these. I don't even know what these are. I never found them. I never fought them. Apparently, you can fight Chakra. I have no idea who this guy is. Apparently, you can fight him, and then apparently he dies and becomes voided, and you can fight the voided version. Okay. No idea who the fuck this is. He looks like a Hollow Knight enemy. This is clearly like a boss which is actually just void plus gank. Like, I can just tell by looking at it. And then this looks like, I don't know what this boss is. I don't remember if I fought this boss or not. But the fact that I don't remember it at all either means I didn't fight it or I did and I didn't even realize it was a boss. And then this thing right here, no idea what this is. It looks like an ant. It looks like the mottled ant, M-O-T-T-L-E-D. You know what I'm saying? Like, after we find him fucking dead, like, lynched. What'd they do to him? They stabbed him in the back, I guess. Maybe he, like, this is his mom or something? I don't know. I have no idea. But I don't care to find out. Okay, now the final boss, because this is going to lead into my next segment. So the final boss is just Lace again. It's not Grandmother Silk. It's not the Void. It's just Lace again. But they gave her a much more annoying moveset that is unpredictable because she teleports around constantly. You barely get any hits in, and if you do, you get contact damage, or you get hit by the tentacles, or you get hit by the orb she throws out, or something, and it's always just like this projectile hell in a game that is clearly not really well made for that type of combat. And narratively, the worst part about this fight is that narratively, it just kind of sucks. It's boring. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It doesn't really feel satisfying or wrap up the story in any nice way. And I watched all the endings. Or I've seen all the endings now. Because I went and I looked up the witch ending because I'm not doing that shit. And there are 4 endings. There's the ending where... the false ending where Hornet absorbs all the silk, can't contain it, it explodes across Farloom, basically nuclear bombing Farloom. There's ending 2, which is where you trap her in the void, but that's not really the end because it's actually the beginning of Act 3. There's the true ending where you... to be honest, there's a lot of these ratings I do not agree with, but to each their own. Feel free to tell me where you would put them. There's ending 3, which is the true ending, where Grandmother Silk you fight Lace again, who is possessed by the Void, I guess. And she even gives you this little speech right before you dive down saying, you think you're coming down here to save me, but I'm not even me anymore. You're talking to the Void right now. So it's clear that Lace is lost. That's why she's called Lost Lace. Lace is gone, bro. This is the Void. And so we go down there to kill Lace and kill Grandmother Silk for some reason. So I guess that we stop the Void from getting their power. I don't know. And we succeed in doing so, but we don't fight Grandmother Silk, even though she's voided. We only fight Lace, and it's the 3rd time we fight her, and it's a super annoying fight with the Void debuff. It's just, okay, so I beat the game, I watched all the endings. The 4th ending is, the witch ending is where you defeat Grandmother Silk, but once you absorb the silk, instead of absorbing the silk, the worm breaks out of you, the witch curse breaks out of you, and turns everything into those like woody vines, which I'm pretty sure that the witch is the same species of bug or whatever, insectoid, as the white lady from Hollow Knight. The only difference being that the witch and the white lady has like the essence of God, and the witch in Silksong does not. But I'm pretty sure that they're the same. They're the same type of being, which would explain why she can do the like weird impregnating reincarnation thing that she does at the end of the witch ending, where she turns everything into like wood, and then the wood cracks, and then like chest burster, some corrupted child pops out, and we don't know what that is, what the nature of that is, but it's like truly the bad ending. And then there's the mushroom secret ending, which I don't know if I can call that ending 4, but it's kind of just like ending 3 plus, I guess. So I watched all the endings. I tried to read some of the lore because I was trying to figure out, why is Lace the final boss? Why is Grandmother Silk, Voided Grandmother Silk, not the final boss? Why is the Void not the final boss? And I can't find a definitive answer. So there is Grandmother Silk made Phantom. Phantom was her first attempt at creating a silk being. And then she made Lace. And Lace is her little perfected baby. Lace is a being of silk turned like real, given real life, like a true Pinocchio. Okay? There's the first sinner. There's Ava. And then there's a widow. And those are the weavers that we meet in the game. Grandmother Silk is not a weaver. Grandmother Silk is silk. She is the progenitor of silk. She has the ability to raise the arachnid, little mindless things that crawl on the wall and do the double damage attack that's like really hard to avoid. They like launch at you and then they launch back. Those are the bug form of weavers. She gave the weavers silk, the ability to manipulate silk, elevating them to higher beings, like ruler beings, queens. And then the weavers took over Farloom and lulled Grandmother Silk to sleep. And then they fucked up Farloom somehow. I don't know the lore on what the weavers did to make Farloom the way that it is. Somehow during this time, she made Phantom, somehow during this time, and she made Lace, somehow during this time, even though she was apparently asleep up in the cradle. Somehow, Lace is free. For some reason. Wait, who is Phantom? Phantom is this one. This is Phantom. This is Lace's older sister. So in Mega Man, you have Proton Man and Mega Man. Proton Man is Phantom, and Mega Man is Lace. Mega Man is like the perfected artificial life form. Lace is the perfected artificial life form of this game. So Lace is the Mega Man of this game. Also, when I beat the game, I was talking about how this is like your aunt, I guess, because this is Grandmother Silk, and our mom was Hera, which is the daughter of Silk, quote unquote. That's not necessarily true, because the weavers are not actually related to Silk, Grandmother Silk. Grandmother Silk is a godlike being that granted power to the weavers, to the arachnids, turning them into weavers. They are not actually her children. So we are not actually related to Grandmother Silk, other than being born from her like artificially God making queens artificially, the weavers. So we aren't actually related to Grandmother Silk. Also, it's Grandmother Silk. She is the grandmother. She's not actually like grandmother. Like, she's not my mother's mother. So her only children are Phantom and Lace. And all of the weavers that she elevated are like her proxy children, her adopted daughters, right? So Lace is not our aunt. She could very well be the same age as Hornet. Who knows, right? It doesn't matter because they don't say it in the game, because I guess it doesn't actually matter. So For some reason, Grandmother Silk brings Hornet to, uses the silk to command her choir to bring Hornet to Farloom. The entire inciting incident of the game, the reason why the game is happening, is because Grandmother Silk brings Hornet to Farloom. The entire plot of Act 1 is finding out who brought Hornet here and why. We find out who. It was Grandmother Silk. And this dawned on me, and this made me rethink the entire game. And I deep dived for 2 hours trying to figure out why. We never find out why. Some people online have an idea and they state it as fact, but I can't find any proof of that. I can't find any in-game explanation to why Grandmother Silk brought us to Farloom. Also, the one who freed us from the cage in the very beginning of the game was Lace. Lace, in her first fight, is seen using her needle as a conductor's wand for the little white, moth whatevers that we see that guide us through the mist. Those are the same little white moths that free us from the cage in the very beginning of the game, causing them to fall off the bridge. Why did Grandmother Silk send for us? Why does Lace protect Grandmother Silk, fighting for her to the death, trying to stop us here, and then trying to stop us here to the death? And then why? Why does she do that? But she also saved us from being captured by Grandmother Silk. Is it possible that she brought you in to end the Silk era? No, I don't think so. Lace my goat. Hi, Bumner. I cannot understand why. Somebody, Amphi, I believe it was Amphi in Minnie's Discord, said probably the same reason why Widow was brought here. Couldn't find any reason why Widow is here. Couldn't find any reason why Widow is here. Couldn't find any reason why First Sinner is here, other than she is locked away and we free her from her imprisonment and then she fights us. Why does she fight us? Don't know. Why is Ava left behind? Ava says that all of the Weavers left. If the Weavers took control of Farloom and lulled Grandmother Silk to sleep so that they could have Farloom, why did they leave? Why did they leave Farloom? It doesn't explain. The game doesn't explain. Or I couldn't find it, and no one online can explain. Because I'm seeing people discuss it, and they're just saying, it's cinema, it's peak, it's cinema. Why? You know what I'm saying? It does not explain. The story of Hollow Knight was very clear, to be honest with you. It was very if you did all the content, you found all the answers. It told you everything. It told you all the answers. Silk posting and probably rage baiting. The title checks out. Yeah, I typed. I know what I'm saying. It just doesn't give the same clarity and closure that Hollow Knight does. Hollow Knight, at the end of true ending of Hollow Knight, I knew the fucking story. I knew. I didn't need to theory craft. I didn't need to do any of that because the story was pretty well told. And then you get to this game, and I'm sitting here, I've finished the game, and I'm like, why did this happen? So I found someone online asking the same questions. Okay? So they asked very similar questions. They said, after completing the third act, I still can't find answers to some questions, so I hope someone here can help me. They're literally just trying to find answers. Number 1, Grandmother Silks. Who is she, and what is her motivation for sending the Haunting? The Haunting being the people who came to capture Hornet. Number 2, why did she... This person replied. Okay, let's read the replies one at a time. Okay. Grandmother Silk is a higher being capable of using silk, but not making it on her own. Where did they get this? Nowhere in the game does it say that. I do not remember that at all. Like the Widow, for example. Where does it say that? This is why she exploited the Weavers of her kingdom, and when these fled, she sent her minions to capture Weavers from other kingdoms. Okay, that makes sense. I don't know where they got this, but it does make sense. The haunting is because she wanted immortal slaves that would worship her forever. Higher beings like the Radiants from Hollow Knight, for example, become more powerful the more worshipped they are. I don't believe this. I don't think that's true. I don't remember that being true in Hollow Knight at all. This is why I got mad when the Moth Tribe forgot about her to worship the Pale King and started to infect bugs through the dreams in the first game. Okay, that does make sense, though. Number 2. Why did she kill the Weavers? If not her, then who? She didn't kill the Weavers, but most likely the heavy exploitation of them killed them from exhaustion or something. You can see these very same themes on the Underworks of the Citadel, where bugs work as slaves, yet they doesn't even realize they are being used because they blindly loyal when they were alive. Okay, this person edit. The Weavers weren't all killed. Most just fled Farloom. Some settled in Hollownest. Okay, it makes sense. This does make sense. That explains why they lulled her to sleep and then left. That does make sense to me. Number 3, why did she create Lace, whom she ignored but wanted to save at the end of the third act? This is a great question. Why did she create Lace? How did she get Lace out of the cradle? And why does Lace, turn against her? She created Lace and Phantom, and contrary to Lace believes, Grandmother Silk really loves her as a daughter. Okay, this is not said in game. You can't just infer that. This is why she used everything she had to protect Lace in the void, despite being betrayed by her and having her arm cut off. Lace just doesn't believe she is actually alive since she is an artificial being. I think this is not. There's not a lot supporting this. I think that this is just based on vibes. Number 4, why did Harry need a child from a divine being, in this case the Pale King, if she ultimately did not prepare her as an heir and gave her permission to do whatever she wanted? Hera the Beast didn't had the chance to get children of her own with the King of the Beast Den, because it died somehow. Yet she wanted a child of royal blood, leaving the Pale King as the best candidate at the time. I guess. I don't know. This is... I think I'm encountering a post FromSoft problem here, a post FromSoft storytelling problem here, where they're leaving things ambiguous, and they have left things too ambiguous to the point of I don't even know what the fuck is happening. I don't know why the characters are doing the things. Why are they motivated to do the things that they're motivated to do? Why are they even in this area? And they put, instead of putting like Dark Souls would do on the Great Dragon Hunter Spear, and it talks about the greatest dragon hunter killer ever, and you get like a little piece of lore, and then you see that name a couple of times and you piece together their story. Instead, Silksong gives you poems and weird, like, discrete, obscure ramblings and characters that don't necessarily know the truth. Thing is, I think Dark Souls does make sense, though. Yeah, that's the difference. That's the difference, Rinka. That's what I'm saying. We are in a post-FromSoft storytelling hellscape where they've gone so far that now they leave it obscure because the story doesn't actually matter. The story doesn't actually matter. And the people like me who are trying to understand the story can't, because what the fuck is even going on? Who the hell is Phantom? Phantom is Lace's older sister, another being made of silk. You can see a memory of them talking on the organ area if you play a song near the weird tank thing there. That's cool. Number 6, how did the Weavers end up being destroyed, considering that they made themselves command Silk, which was in almost every beetle that obeyed them, and they destroyed every dissenter and the lands that belonged to them. The Weavers had the Silk, and they were still bugs. In other words, way weaker than a higher being, like a worm, Pale King, Radiance, and the Grandmother Silk. Hornet is way stronger than the game give her credit for, because she is half-worm. This isn't really... You didn't answer the question. Number 7, why did they create the Mother of Silk? I'm not really sure they created her, or if she took the power from the last higher being of Farloom, like Hornet combined her in one of the endings. This is not what happens. She does not become a full Weaver. Number 8, why do some bugs succumb to the haunting and some don't? In the first part, it depended on your will, and you could use it to protect yourself from radiance. In Silksong, however, Silk is woven into almost every Farloom bug, and they obey regardless of anything else, don't they? I think it's the same thing as the first game. A strong mind or the will to resist her control is needed, like Sherma, for example. Sherma does not have a strong mind or will. Sherma is without sin. That's why Sherma is... That's like Sherma's whole character, that Sherma is like pure of heart and mind. He started the game being totally delusional, thinking the Citadel must be the most amazing thing ever, but when he reached the Citadel and see all the bad things, and is almost killed while retrieving medical supplies in the White Ward, he changed his mind from a follower to a leader. That's not what happened. Okay, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. Number 9, is there any new information about the Pellet King of the Gang? I don't think there is any new information. As a matter of fact, very little is found from the first game. Okay, these questions did not answer anything that I wanted to have answered in the end. So what are my questions? What are my questions? And I'm going to see if I can try to answer them. I typed these out last night, and I was going to read those posts on stream, and then I was going to try to answer them. So question number 1, feel free to try to answer these questions if you can. Why was Hornet brought to Farloom in the first place? So, okay. Let's make the assumption that Grandmother Silk... Okay, no, that doesn't make any sense. I was about to say Grandmother Silk cannot control or cannot produce silk. That's literally wrong. I'm going to make an assumption here. I think Grandmother Silk can make silk, but cannot control silk like a weaver, right? Can't do it like a weaver can. Like how Widow could in Bellheart, or how all the other weavers could, like in a Deep Nest, right? I'm going to make an assumption, because I can't find any evidence contrary or for or against. Grandmother Silk can make silk, but cannot control it like the weavers. Do we see a weaver in Silksong at all? Yeah, bro. Yeah. This is a weaver. This is a weaver. Ava is a weaver. You are a weaver. Hornet. Hera is a weaver from the first game, but she's dead. She's a dreamer in the first game, and she's a memory in the second game. Yeah, those are weavers. So they can control silk. But Grandmother Silk can only make silk. But what does Farloom then need Grandmother Silk for? So, just like I said, Grandmother Silk can make the silk that the weavers can then use to control the masses. But without the weavers, all Grandmother Silk can do is, I guess, blanket with silk? That doesn't make any sense. I'm just going to roll with that. Okay, so why does she bring Hornet to Farloom? I think she brings Hornet and Widow to Farloom because she needs weavers to utilize the silk. She can't maintain control because she can't use the silk. All she can do is control the weavers, govern the weavers to use the silk. So you basically need a martyr of some sorts that exists to produce the silk the weavers need. Yes, and Grandmother Silk needs the weavers to use the silk that she makes. Okay? All right. This may be incorrect, but this is the only way that I can string this narrative together. So Grandmother Silk is silk. She imbued the arachnids with the ability to manipulate silk, turning them into greater beings, which are the weavers, which led to the creation of the Citadel and Farloom as a whole. They would use the white halls, the bloodborne medical bay, to inject bugs, Farloom residents, the pilgrims, with silk to strengthen them and keep them alive forever. Because if we're going off of what that other guy, that answer said is correct, the godlike beings need worshippers to stay godlike beings. So Grandmother Silk needs the weavers because the weavers can utilize her silk to control the masses, keeping them alive forever and worshiping forever. Okay? All right, we're getting somewhere. So the weavers, why did they leave Farloom? They lulled her to sleep in the cradle. What if Grandmother Silk is more like a hostage and not this powerful being it appears to be, and she wants you to end it? you're cutting to the end, all right, Rinka? We're trying to put a narrative together here. So they lulled her to sleep, and then they left Farloom to not be controlled by her anymore. And the game happens because she is doing the haunting to bring Weavers back. Now, how is she doing the haunting? If she can't control the silk, what does she need? If she can control it, and that's how she does the haunting, and that's how she's animating the dead insects, the carcasses in the citadel, what does she need the Weavers for? Who knows? I can't answer that. I literally can't answer that. Okay. So, if that's the case of this like mutual relationship that she has with the Weavers, why did she make Phantom and Lace? Why did she make them? And when did she make them? If she is asleep in the cradle, and that's how the Weavers escaped, when did she make Lace? And why? Is it so that she could have children of her own? Is it so that... Is she a being made entirely of silk? And so she made Lace a being made entirely of silk in order to, like, continue the bloodline, I guess? Like, knowing she was going to die because she's weakening, she created a version of herself that is independent from herself? I'm starting to really doubt that she likes to be dependent of the Weavers. I don't think she likes it, no. We don't know, though. They don't say it in the game. We barely get any information about Grandmother Silk, now that I think about it. We really don't get much about her. Or, like, what her motivations are, why she does anything. We also don't really get any reason for why Silk or Phantom, or Lace or Phantom exist. We can just interpret. I'm doing more than interpreting. Interpreting is when things are obfuscated or written in a way that's like, you have to interpret it to modern times. But it's there, I just have to interpret it into modern times or a way that it can be simplified for us to understand. We are literally just making stuff up right now based on vibes and the way that the story is kind of presented to me. So if the Weavers lulled her to sleep, when did she make Lace? When did she make Phantom? Why did she make them? What purpose do they serve? And then how did Grandmother Silk wake up? How did she wake up and do the haunting? How can she do the haunting why does she need the Weavers if she can do the haunting? She clearly has the ability to control Silk. And why does Lace end the haunting? Like, or interrupt the haunting on Hornet? It doesn't, I'm not seeing the answers here. Okay. Why did the Weavers die? Where did the Weavers go? We know that one of them left. We don't know where Widow went to. We don't know where Widow went to or came from. So I have no idea why she's back or where she came from. All we really know is that Hera went to Hallow Nest and formed her own Deep Nest. So that's all I really know about the Weavers. And I guess we don't really need to know any more. Why did Grandmother Silk bring Hornet to Farloom, and why did Lace free Hornet? Okay. Some people online are saying that Silk has the ability to ward off the void. Okay, I did see that a lot. I kept trying to find why is Lace possessed by the void? Why is Lace the final boss? Why is that? And some people are saying that Silk has the ability to ward off the void. So that's why she imbued all of her subjects with Lace, or with Silk, to ward off the void. I don't think that's true. I think the biggest problem with the narrative is that the game hints that there's a big family drama in the background happening, but we really don't know what exactly happened between them or how they feel about each other. And most of the characters aren't even there. We're seeing, like, Facebook posts from a bunch of deleted accounts. And so we're just seeing, like, a couple of posts here, and we're like, well, it seems like they're replying in this way. You know what I mean? But also, the person that we're reading the reply from, when we finally meet them, They don't give us anything. They just scream a bunch and then die. So why, now that we've seen the ending of the game and we've seen that the void is like an entity, but that the voidlings, all your siblings from Hollow Knight, exist within it and are still around and fighting for you. Why is the void an enemy? If the void was our ally in the first game and we were the void and the void ended up being the answer to our problem with Radiance, why is the void the enemy in Act 3? And then why does the void possess? If Silk can ward off the void, how does a being of pure silk, Lace, become completely possessed by the void? And why does Grandmother Silk not help us fight the void? So I don't think that theory is correct in saying that Grandmother Silk was making all this to fight the void and brought us here to strengthen the Silk to fight the void. That doesn't make sense. Okay, what I think now is Silksong is probably not Hornet's story. It's a story of Lace and her mother and her brother. No, I think Phantom's a girl. The way, kind of a feminine voice when they screamed. But I guess we don't know. The real question that I have here is, why is Lace the final boss? Why is Lace the final boss? It should have been Grandmother Silk. If we go by this narrative that Grandmother Silk was doing all of this to strengthen the Silk and keep her in power and fend off the void, it would have made a lot more sense for Grandmother Silk to be the final boss. And for Lace to be like an ad during the fight that does like a move here and there. That maybe we free from the possession and then she helps us fight like phase 3 Grandmother Silk. But instead it's just Lace for 3 fights and then Grandmother Silk falls down and screams. Okay. And then the final, most frustrating part. Why does Grandmother Silk... Okay, the only assumption I can make is that we go down there and Grandmother Silk doesn't fucking help us for some reason, but she wants us to save Lace from the void. So she's created like this bubble within the void where her and Lace are, so that we can come down, defeat Lace, free her from the void, corruption, and then she can give us the remainder of her silk and we can escape the void that way, which it then runs out halfway for a unearned cameo from the vessel from game 1. Okay, all right. So now that I've laid out all of my... do you know what would have happened if Grandmother Silk grabbed us into the abyss and not Lace? I don't know what would have happened. I don't know. Maybe something cooler than what we got. So now that I've laid out my issues with the story and my issues with the final boss and the way that things operate around Grandmother Silk and Lace, I have come to the conclusion that this is just not... It's kind of like a Lies of P DLC. It's just not that good of a story. And it leaves you wanting constantly. The gameplay is a frustrating experience that pushes you away from enjoying it at every turn, insults you, and is a maliciously done... what was the word? Was Hollow Knight's plot that much better in your opinion? I don't think it was like significantly better. I do think it was put together better. I could see the full timeline. I still know Hollow Knight's story. I could list it right now. I by the end of True Ending, I know why the Pale King is doing what he's doing, what Hera's role was, what the White Lady's role was, what all the little failed Void Children were, why the Hollow Knight existed, why the Vessel existed, why Radiance exists, and why Radiance is an enemy, what the role the Void played, what role Hornet played. She kind of didn't play a very important role. She kind of played a Lace role, where like I don't really understand why she was doing the things she did, other than I guess just to like test the Vessel, to get the Vessel to grow to be strong enough to take on the Hollow Knight and Radiance, I guess. I don't know. to kind of pseudo lead you in the correct direction, which is kind of what Lace does in this game. I can like list out why all these things are the way that they are. When I look at this game, I can't. And I keep asking these questions, and I can't find any answers online. I keep Googling in different ways. I keep wiki diving in Reddit, like ending discussion and Steam question pages, ending discussion, and I'm not getting any even near satisfying answers to why these things are happening and what the point even is. My theory is you have been brought to Farloom as the safe bet because Grandmother Silk knew Lace couldn't get the job done because of their bond. What the job was about, I have no idea. So let me make up a story for us. Let's make up a story here. Long ago, just like Hallownest, there was a civilization that worshipped the void and built their civilization deep, deep, deep in the earth to be as close to the void as possible. Eventually, that civilization fell. Long later, just like what the Pale King did when he was a great worm, they came to this land, the same place where the void civilization was, and they built their kingdom there. In Hollow Knight, the Pale King rose to be a godlike being, whereas Radiance is presumably already a godlike being. In Silksong, Grandmother Silk may have already been a Radiance type being, but she could have been a Pale King type god that rose to godhood by gaining power. It seems to be that Grandmother Silk can produce silk and control it, but maybe not in a fine-tuned way. Maybe she can only do broad, sweeping gestures, similar to how Radiance doesn't control who they infect. People, all the bugs just get infected, right? Maybe that's why she needed the Weavers. I'm going to say that's the reason. So she could produce silk, but could not weave it. So she took the original arachnids and turned them into weavers, elevated them to queens that could weave the silk. They built up Farloom together. Somewhere, hi Jeepa, this is a new item, new stream rewind as a channel subscriber. You can pause and rewind this stream to catch up on any missed moments, Wowie. What the fuck? What do you mean, but what for, Rinka? There's a delay and I've said too many things. Hi Jeepo. Welcome to Spoilers the Stream. I have no idea what that is. As a channel subscriber, you can pause and rewind this stream to catch up on any missed moments. That's weird. Why does Grandmother Silk even want to control Silk so bad? Okay, so let's make the assumption that Steam community, you can rewind streams now if you sub or have turbo. Oh, interesting. Pay to rewind. Yeah, true. Or you could just like, wait, that used to be a thing you could just do. I used to be able to go back in the VOD and clip it. I remember, like, chat would be arguing with a streamer, and they'd be like, someone go back in the VOD and clip it and show me. And we would go back in the VOD and clip it, and then post the clip link in, like, real time. You can still do that, but now you don't have to go to the VOD. Oh, I've realized I do not give a fuck about endgame spoilers, because I would never think about any of this if I played. Okay, good. I'm glad. So, you can listen to my made-up narrative then. So, let's make the assumption that Steam community commenter in that endgame questionnaire was telling the truth, and that Radiance needs people to worship them to maintain that godlike power. And that's why they struck out against the Moth Clan, the person who gave us the Dream Nail, because they turned their back on Radiance. Now, I will say that doesn't make a lot of sense because literally nobody in Hallownest knows what Radiance is or has ever heard of Radiance, and it is only like through obscure lore that you understand what Radiance is by the time you fight them. So that literally is wrong, but let's make the assumption that that is correct and that it's the same thing for Grandmother Silk. Grandmother Silk needs undying, eternally worshipping pilgrims that will worship and work to keep Farloom running perpetually. That's why she needs the weavers. She raises up the arachnids to become weavers so that they can micro-control the bugs of Farloom to keep them alive forever and worshiping forever. Well, the weavers want their own space and don't care because this is her spot. Why does she care so much about Farloom? Why did the White King care so much about Hollow Nest? Why was Radiance in Hollow Nest? I think it's because that's just their territory. Bugs breed like crazy. I don't think she needs them to be immortal. Well, that was her plan. That's what you find out in the White Hall, the Bloodborne place where they inject the bugs' carapace with silk. That's what you find out in that area. That she was strengthening them and making them live perpetually. That's what the point of that was. So this is the only assumption I can make, is that's what that was her grand plan. Okay. So they lull her to sleep in the cradle. At some point during this, she wakes up. Oh, sorry. I skipped a part. They lull her to sleep, and they leave Farloom, spreading out to make their own nests. They either are still there and alive, wherever their nests are, or they have died because it has been a very, very long time. Over this age, everybody starts to forget or stop worshiping. They're worshiping, but it seems like nobody knows why. The architects are the architect and the conductors are either dead or dying off. Even the machine, the architect itself, the machine given life, is the last of its kind and will soon die. If you buy out all of her items, she's like, I'm going to die pretty soon here. And I'm pretty sure if I had gone back to her area after reloading, she would have been dead. But I didn't. The conductor is old, can't conduct anymore, so he can't conduct the choir, so he can't conduct the religious worship of Grandmother Silk or the weavers. All the weavers are gone, so nobody's controlling the silk anymore. And the bugs are worshiping, but they're not worshiping Grandmother Silk. They're worshiping the Citadel, it seems more like. They're working, but nobody's in charge anymore. Even Trobio is like, this place used to be grand, but it's all dying now. Nobody's here. Everybody's dead, right? That's like why Trobio is the way that he is. Okay, so Farloom declines. Grandmother Silk at some point wakes up. I do not know why she creates Phantom or Lace. All I can assume is that she creates them in an attempt to get something that can weave without having the weavers. This fails. Lace is not a weaver. Lace is Silk. So she performs the haunting, sending out her pilgrims to go find the weavers and bring them back. Do we know that she creates them past her being put to sleep? No, we don't. We have no idea. I'm only assuming that because Lace is referred to as a child and has no memory, never mentions the weavers, doesn't talk about the weavers. It seems like she has no familiarity with the way Farloom was, only the way Farloom is. And for all of the time that Lace has been alive, she has been, quote unquote, abandoned and ignored by her mother. But we know that it's actually because Grandmother Silk is trapped in, is trapped in the cradle. So Grandmother Silk can't interact with Lace. I do not know why Lace exists. I can only make the assumption that she was trying to create an artificial weaver because all of her weavers that she elevated left Farloom. Maybe she doesn't have the ability to unshackle the first sinner, or maybe she can't unshackle it because the first sinner won't listen to her. She probably doesn't have the ability to enter into the weaver nests. That would also explain that. So she can't free Ava. We also don't know if Ava can even weave, or if she just is a weaver that is like a different type of being. We don't know any of these things. The game does not explain them, so we don't know what Grandmother Silk was thinking or why she needed to bring back the weavers. I can only assume that she brought back the weavers because she needed micro control of her kingdom to bring it back to, Radiance, to bring it back to its heightened ability or heightened state where she was god of everything. Because without the worshippers, she's weakened. So I'm making the assumption that she did not create Lace or Phantom out of love. She created them out of an attempt to regain control, and it failed. So she did the haunting. Lace, in an act of rebellion, because Lace is a sentient being striking out, and is a child, striking out against their mother's plans because they are a child, frees us from the haunting. Okay. The story goes on. The game happens. All the way to the final boss. I do not agree that Silk has the ability to fend off the void. I don't think anything has the ability to fend off the void. I think that the Silk was only there as a means of control and longevity, and not as like a preemptive strike against the void. I don't know if Grandmother Silk even gave a shit about the void. That's like something she may have not even considered, you know what I mean, or cared about. So I'm not even, because we don't know and there's nothing in the story that even really adds to that theory, I'm not even going to consider it. That explains why Lace was able to be fully possessed and Grandmother Silk was able to be brought down. Thing is, nobody cared about the void until Act 3. Nobody even knew about it. Just like how nobody cared about Radiance until Act 3, quote unquote, of Hollow Knight. Radiance didn't even matter until the map changed and the blight spread everywhere. And then we were like, oh, wait, that's what that is? Like, it's just something completely new. The difference being, at least in Hollow Knight, that was the reason why everything was going crazy and all the dead bugs were coming back to life all orange and goopy because of Radiance's poison. So it like built up in Hollow Knight, whereas in Silksong, it just happens. And there you go. It just appears, and there you go. This is the story now. And you could say that the shaman, the witch, the very first NPC you meet, the witch, and the uncle who calls you a slave, and then the dead body that Grohl takes control of, or takes the soul power of, could have been foreshadowing that the void was going to be in the story because they exist. And we do know that the void is a problem because of Hollow Knight, and we know that the void is underneath all settlements, right? Or we can assume so. You could make the stretch that of course the void would be a thing, but I do agree with you that it seemingly comes out of nowhere. Yeah, but the void is just this whole new threat that didn't even have any effect on the world before, so it shifts the whole narrative away from Grandmother Silk and Lace, etc., and just goes, oh, here the void is bad, defeated. Yes, I agree. So for some reason, somehow Palpatine returns and the void is back, and this time the void is the enemy. Even though the void was the hero in the first game, the void was our cradle of birth. It was our mother. It was the vessel's entire being. It was our power. It was our guide and our tool for salvation. For some reason, the void is the enemy now. And the void takes control of the Silk and takes control of all the dead bodies. And they don't even need to be dead anymore. Now it can take control of living bugs now and continue to animate them, just like Silk did, but this time they don't have to be corpses. And Grandmother Silk gets like corrupted, I guess, but not completely possessed, and Lace becomes completely possessed. And the Lace that we talk to in Act 3 is actually just the void. It's not actually Lace. That's why she says that whole thing of like, You think you're coming down to save the child, but that's not even who I am anymore. So she's the void now, or something like that, right? So you go down into the void to save or defeat Lace because the void is using the Silk that Grandmother Silk has left and the power that Grandmother Silk still has to take over Farloom. Don't know what its motivation is. That's just what it's doing. Maybe it's like a hurricane. It's just a natural disaster. And unlocking the void is the like, that's just what the void does. It's like fire burns, right? That's the only assumption I can make. So you go down, you defeat Lost Lace, knocking back the possession of the void. in a similar way to like a exorcism. You exorcise the void from Lace. And then Grandmother Silk, knowing that there's no coming back from this and that her plan to wrestle back control of Farloom is over. She's dead. This is the end of her life. Decides, I'm at least going to get them out of here. Hornet says, give me some lace, give me some silk. Grandmother Silk does. You escape. In doing so, you blast away Grandmother Silk. You can see it in like the background of your down L2, your upward dash. Grandmother Silk is like getting vaporized by your power. We can assume that Grandmother Silk dies in the void or is completely consumed by it. On the way up, for some reason, you run out of silk, even though you just got like godlike silk levels. For some reason, you run out of silk, and for some reason, the vessel comes to save you from the void. Says hi, and then all your siblings fuck off. For some reason. And then you go up to the top, and it is now just you, Hornet, who does not have the powers of Grandmother Silk, because Grandmother Silk only gave you enough to escape. That's why you ran out halfway. And Lace is now free from her mother. And Lace laughs because I guess this is what they wanted, or maybe she just laughs because she laughs the entire game. So that's the narrative. One of the most disappointing parts of this game, in my opinion, is that there is no epilogue after finishing the game. You spend all this time as Hornet, way more than the Vessel. The Vessel does... People become, like... Like, there's this one scene where the map maker... What's his name? I can't get the word ornithopter out of my brain. I can't get the word Cornifax out of my brain. I can't remember his name. The map maker from Hollow Knight. He says... he talks about Hornet, and he's like, Cornifer, not Cornifax. So Cornifer is like, I've seen Hornet. I've tried to call out to her to offer her my services so that she can get around better, but she just ran away from me. I guess she isn't a map enthusiast like you and I are. Like, the characters in Hollow Knight become endeared to the Vessel, but the Knight. But the Knight does not talk, so they have no, like, agency. We don't know what they think, we don't know what they feel, or if they can. They are the point of view character, but they are not, like, they don't speak, they don't give us input, they aren't a narrative driving force. In Silksong, Hornet is a narratively driven character. She tells her feelings, she tells her opinions, she reacts to characters, she acts annoyed or happy or relieved or sad that things happen. She talks and gives her opinions and her ideas. Why is there no epilogue? Why is there no epilogue to the story where I can walk around the map and tell people, the world isn't over, Fleas? The world isn't over, my favorite characters. You're safe. I saved you. I was your Mary Sue, your Superman self-insert for this story, and I saved you. Worship me. And there's just none of that. Will that be the DLC, perhaps? Most likely. Most likely, that will be the DLC. The aftermath of the void. Yeah. The only implications we get about postgame is that the menu screen changes to show both Hornet and Lace's pin, implying they're traveling together, I suppose, or implying that they put their weapons down because they don't need them anymore. That would make sense. Either would make sense. Either way, I have now redone my story analysis and my critique and my you'll take a boss rush now with more ads and gauntlets and be happy. Exactly. You'll take it and you'll shut the fuck up. And if you don't like it, complain online and get told you're stupid and your opinion sucks. So now that I've gone through my rant, now that I've gone through my rage baiting and my crash out and my attempt to understand the story and understand the characters and their motivations, I think I have Mandatory, you're stupid and your opinions suck. Yes, exactly. I think I have done, great emote, Mikire, great emote for that moment. I think I've done a pretty adequate job at piecing together this story and trying to understand and explain the motivations of the characters. I've explained the types of mechanics that I really, really liked and the types of mechanics that I wish they had done more of. And of course, you have heard me bitch at length on the mechanics that I hated, that are bad and do not fit well in this game, and they feel like jigsaw puzzles, that pieces that they just shoved into place, and they are incongruous with the way that the parts that make the game feel good. The parts that make the game feel good and the parts that make the game feel bad clash constantly in this game. Now, my final rating for the game, I said it during the boss fight, I am going to stick to it. This is a 5 out of 10. This is a 5 out of 10 game. All of the points that it gets from 0 to 5 are all music, graphics, and gameplay feel. The way that Hornet moves, the way that her attacks feel, and the pogo feels, and like a lot of stuff in this game is just so good. Hi, Howard. When it comes to like feel and vibe, right? Every other thing, every other aspect of this game that makes it a game, that makes it Silksong, is unbearable to me. The Citadel bumped this game up for me a lot, but I'm still on a 5 to 6. I think so as well, Rinka. Hi, Howard. Howard, you missed literally everything. Welcome to the stream, though. You missed an hour and a half of me explaining my feelings on Hollow Knight. I kind of wish that I recorded this so that I could. I'm gonna have to download this VOD and cut it from the VOD. Fuck. See, I'm still in Act 2, but I genuinely think it's an 8 out of 10 for me. That's okay. Look, and the thing is like, I think I am overly critical of this game. I think that I am not the type of gamer that this game is made for. I think that me streaming it and pushing myself to keep playing and pushing myself to continue and pushing myself to get through something, and I'm not going to end stream till I get through it. I'm not going to take a break. I'm going to keep fighting. I think that literally made this game worse. The way that I played, the way that I experienced it, and the way that I got through this very, very negatively impacted the way that I feel about this game. It is impossible for me to give an objective rating. I can't say, objectively, this game's like an 8 out of 10, but personally, I feel like it's a 5. I can't say that because every opinion I have about this game is tainted by my experience with it and the like way that it made me feel after I finished and the way that it made me feel before I even turned on the game. Right? I would be at work and I'd be like, I'm going to stream today. And I'd be mad that I had to stream because I had to play this game. And it's impossible for me to give it any other rating than the one that I have because of my personal biases. Now, that being said, there is a lot to love here, and I can understand why people like this game. I really can. I can understand why people are enamored and they love it and it's their game of the year and it's a 10 out of 10. It's cinema. But I also think that we live in a like post discussion phase of the internet. You can't, it's either cinema or it's cringe. It's either cinema or it's slop. There's no in between, and I can appreciate what is good about this game and also think that there's a lot about this game that is fucking terrible and I hate it, you know? But I can't really share that opinion online without people. If I were a popular YouTuber or a popular streamer, I'd probably be getting a lot of shit because there's only like 6-7 people here that are used to my opinions. You guys are used to me. You can be like, oh yeah, it's an 8 out of 10, but I see where you're coming. This is a 10 out of 10 for me, but I understand what you're saying. You know what I mean? You guys are used to me. But if I just like posted this opinion on Reddit, my account would be banned. Yeah, I think this is the case for almost all games, books, reviews. Your opinion will change based on your experience, which heavily depends on your state of mind. Right, Ari? It's like how your sister loved Earthlings. You know? It's one of those situations for me. Don't worry, Crawl. I can tell you objectively, the gank fight in High Halls is one of the worst things I witnessed in the game so far. You're talking about this fight right here? It wasn't that bad for me. I think it took me like 3 attempts. Why are like 85% of the bosses all gray or brown? So true. So true. Yeah. I had a really big issue with you mean just like in general, it just sucks. It just sucks to play. I agree with you. I have a really big issue overall with the way that this game handles its content. What Team Cherry thinks content is. The creator, I don't know his name, Leth, I think it is. What he thinks and his team thinks is worthy to be put into a video game. This game should have been like 50% shorter. It should have been like 50% shorter. Let's count how many bosses are unique. Let's start at the top. So 1, 2. Here. I'm going to rearrange these. I'm going to put the unique bosses in S and the non-unique bosses in A. Okay? This is a unique boss. This is a unique boss. This is a copy. Where's Trobio 2? Okay, Trobio 2 is a copy. This is a unique boss. This is a copy because this is the boss it's copying. This is a copy because this is the boss it's copying. This is the original, but it's not actually. It's kind of just this, but it can go through walls. So I'm actually going to call this a copy. This is 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 an original. This is a original. This is a gauntlet fight. I'm not going to count it. This is an original. This is not even a fucking boss. This is fine, but this is a copy of that. This is fine. This is a copy. This is fine, but it's a basic enemy turned boss, and this is the same thing. It's a copy. This is a copy. This is an original, but I don't even consider this a boss. This is a fucking trash. This is a copy. This is literally a nothing boss. This is a copy. This is an original boss, but it's fucking trash. This is a gauntlet fight with Sister Silk mechanic at the end. This is just Beast Fly, but it explodes. This is just this is a copy of where is she? These two bosses are the same. These two bosses are the same enemy. Now let's see. Are any of these copies of each other? So now let's break it down. This is just though she is the first version, her first Sinner is a copy of Widow, but she herself is a copy of Nightmare King Grim. This is an original to this game, but it itself is a copy of Radiance, but only the swords. What else? Oh, this boss is also a copy of this boss. It does very similar moves, except this time it flies and it stays out of your reach. Yeah, okay. So of 51 bosses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 out of 51 bosses, including these down here, which I did not fight, are actually like kind of unique to this game. How is Bell Eater a copy of Bell Beast? I barely okay, so, all right. I'll say I don't remember what Bell Beast was like, but I remember it being similar, where it like pops out of the ground and you have to pogo on it. I fully agree with people saying this game is too big. The decision to put it there really is a turning point for me in the game, and I understood who Team Cherry is. Elden Ring had the exact same problem. I agree, Ari. Elden Ring has the exact same problem. Howard, you calling Elden Ring perfect is objectively wrong. Okay, Salty, I'm going to believe you. I'm going to believe you that this is a totally different fight. Salty is canceling the sub right at this moment. Come on, the green deer is unique. Okay, the green deer is unique. I guess we'll say this boss is unique. And I guess we'll say this boss is unique. No other boss is like this. Bell Beast is about 3 to 4 moves. I don't know about Bell Eater. Okay, you have not gotten a Bell Eater. Perfectly imperfect. Okay. So what is that? That makes it 17? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18? I think. 19, 20. What is that? 2 fifths. 2 fifths of your bosses are actually unique. Everything else is just a copy. Everything else I agree with. I really wish Clover Dancer added something new instead of just being Cogwork Dancers again. It added one move. It added a very, very hard to dodge whirlwind move that moves counterclockwise and vacuums it into it, and so you get hit for double damage, and then you can't retaliate because they're in the middle of the map and they have a ball around them, so you can't even pogo because you'll get sucked into the void. The tornado. I was shocked by how many bosses are just Savage Beastfly. This is just Savage Beastfly, except he can't fly. This is just Savage Beastfly, except they are only flying, and they do the little cone move, I guess. What else is just Savage Beastfly? This is just Savage Beastfly. Well, these bosses... Okay, I guess I can't just say they are just Savage Beastfly. Here's what I'll say. They are just big boss with annoying hitbox that runs from one side to the other side and then spawns ads. That's what these are. That's what these bosses are. They're big boss with deceptively large, fat hitbox that clips you and deals double damage. The Nosk archetype. I don't know what that is. Getting to fight Cogwork Dancer again sounds awesome, though. Unless it's Cogwork Dancer, but worse. It's Cogwork Dancer, but worse. Okay, so these are all the bosses that are what I was describing. These are all the same boss. You fight her 3 times, bruh. These are just regular enemies turned into bosses when they shouldn't have been. These are the same boss right here. These aren't the same, but I'm putting them next to each other as being the same. This is very similar to Lace, I'm not going to lie. This is Nightmare King Grim. These 2 bosses are the exact same. This boss and... where is she? Here, these are the same boss. I don't remember how similar they are, but they are very similar. This boss and this boss are the same. This boss and this boss are the same. This is just a gank fight with, but I liked it. That's the difference, is I liked this boss. So which of these are truly unique? Which of these are truly unique? These are the only bosses that don't have a copy. But I can't really say that about this boss because it's literally just this guy right here. This and this are very, very similar, except this one summons ads. It's like if this boss and this boss had a baby. You got this boss. Okay. The bosses in S tier right now are the only bosses that do not have a copy in some way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So of the bosses that I fought, only 9 of them are not just a straight up copy of another boss with like a slightly different moveset. Ari, Team Cherry's only trick is we take boss X and make it worse with ads or environmental damage. Or I'm going to spoil it, Ari, endgame spoiler, or they give it a new type of damage. They give it a new type of damage that removes your silk. Either it's the maggots or it's the void. And you get either some debuff that takes away your silk. And crazy AoE projectiles. That's every boss in this entire game. Every time I see a boss that's a repeat/gank land, I just get a way to cheese it with tools. I'll be so real. The only difference is that from me and you there is that yes, the tools are really, really good, especially the clockwork fly or whatever it was, the beetle that you throw out and it attacks like 6 times on its own, 5 times, something like that. You get it in Act 2. It's I don't want to farm for chits, bro. I don't want to farm for bone chits. I don't want to. I think that's so fucking lame. I think if I were ever to play this game again, I would have to install 3 mods. 1, everything does 1 mask of damage. Nothing does double damage. Yes, I do think that some things should deal double damage. Some of these bosses should deal double damage. Some attacks are like really big wind-ups that are big explosions that it's like, okay, you deserve to get hit by that if you get hit by that. And it should be double damage. Like, Grandmother Silk should do double damage. All of her attacks. It makes sense. It makes sense. It should be special. She's literally God. Number 2, no contact damage on anything. No contact damage on anything. And I don't think, I'm okay with traps doing damage. I don't think traps should do 2 damage. Ever, anywhere. Yeah, but then the game is over. I don't care. And number 3, tools do not cost. You get a set amount of uses per bench sit. And every time you upgrade your bag, you get more uses. It makes upgrading your bag much more important. And they do not cost chits. Bone fragments cut from the game. They do not matter. They should have been building materials to build up Farloom. But instead, that's what rosaries are. Everything costs way too much rosaries, and chits are used for nothing but your tools. And that one quest where you turn in 440. Literally, there is no reason for tools to cost chits. I think that the game, those are the 3 mods. No contact damage from enemies at all. Everything does 1 damage. Except for maybe Grandmother Silk. And number 3, tools do not require chits. Shard frags makes sense. Yeah, it's just like, okay, go farm after so many attempts. And that sucks. That takes you out of the flow. It is a tried and true design philosophy that has worked for very many games. Not made by FromSoft. Life Gem moment, exactly. Blood Vial moment. Not made by FromSoft, but popularized by FromSoft. That you die over and over and over again to a platforming section or a gauntlet of enemies like the arena from Hollow Knight or a boss. And you learn their moveset, you download their moveset, and eventually you beat them because you got better at the game. Because you learned and you grew. And having to stop that download, press pause, and roll back 10% because you have to go farm for fucking 40 minutes is some of the assest, worst game design that has come out of like this era of this style of game. This style of perseverance gameplay. I think that Team Cherry literally like shat this game out. I would expect the contact damage with a health bar mod. I really hate contact damage, but I really believe that's the only thing that carries the combat in Hollow Knight and Skong. I kind of agree with you, but I'm talking about the only things that would get me to replay this game. The only thing that would get me to replay this game is I'm not dealing with contact damage ever again. That's my truth. That's my truth. I'm spitting my shit. I am never going to play Silksong again as long as there's contact damage. The only replayable game is Skyrim. I would replay Hollow Knight. I would replay Hollow Knight. I would replay Blasphemous. I would replay a lot of these games. But imagine Skong remade with contact damage not being a thing. The bosses would have to be designed better. So true, Ari. Yes, for sure. Like, I don't say it's a strength of the game, but it's just how this game works. Otherwise, it would fall apart completely. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think it would fall apart completely. I think that's a little bit of an over-exaggeration. What is that? What is that emote? Iframe dodge was more interesting combat than all the movement in Skong combined. Totally agree, Howard. 100% agree. No, that is not a bold take. I 100% agree. There's one reason why. Flow. The reason why Cogwork Dancers feel so good is because it feels like a dance. It is a dance. It's choreographed. All of FromSoft's combat, not all of it, their design philosophy is choreographed. Dodge, dodge, hit, rest, stamina, dodge, hit, dodge, right? It's flowing. I know where my iframes are. I know how to dodge. I know I can dodge that. I know I can jump that. I know I can iframe that. I do light load to have more iframes because I know with light load I can dodge this. I can parry that. It's a dance. Sekiro's a rhythm game. Bloodborne is all about timing and audio cues and pressing my button at the right moment of their animation. And that's what makes that special. And Team Cherry does not understand that, and they try to emulate it with their design philosophy, and it makes a incongruous, I love that word when talking about this game, incongruous gameplay style that feels like shit or feels punishing where it shouldn't be. I think without contact damage, Hollow Knight and Skong wouldn't be a platformer game anymore. It would be a hack and slash and pretty easy. I mean, I would prefer it, but I don't think that's what the community plays this for. No, I agree with you. There's a positioning matters in Hollow Knight, right? I played with the Wanderer, which is the shortest needle in the game, meaning that I had a higher probability of getting hit by the enemy. By contact damage. I don't think that removing contact damage is necessary to making the game like better. I think that removing contact damage would make the game more fun for me because I'm sick of it. Core combat is fine, but the bosses don't complement it. Did I say that it makes the core combat suck? Let me think on that for a moment. Core combat is fine, but the bosses don't complement it. I think I agree with that. Yeah. I think I agree with that. That the core combat, the gameplay, the core gameplay, the bones that the game is built on is good. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I was what's it called? I was being what is it when YouTubers are like, this is the greatest thing ever, and then the next thing comes out and they're like, this is the greatest thing ever. I was doing that. I don't think you said exactly that, yeah. It's pretty much what Aries said. Like, the combat is good, but the bosses are cheap. Yeah. Sensationalism? No, it's another word. I can't remember. Being Howard? Okay. Shilling ads? No. No, it's, I can't remember the word. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying. Hyperbolic. Thank you, Howard. I was being hyperbolic. Yeah. I was being hyperbolic. But you understand what I mean. You understand what I mean. I feel like, personally, I know that they're my arguments, and so I'm biased, but I feel like my arguments against this game are very sound. I think that they are very steeped in emotion, but I also think that they are very, reasonable. And you can understand where I'm coming from, and you can relate to them and feel similar to me, maybe not as dramatic as me, but you can understand why I'm giving this game a 5 out of 10. And why I feel so compelled to talk about my issues with this game. I think Hollow Knight is a masterpiece. When I finished that game, I was like, this game is awesome. I didn't think it was perfect. I did have some problems with it, but I thought the game was awesome. I thought everything that people said about Hollow Knight was true, and that it's totally worth playing, and it's super exciting when people are like, I've never played it. I'm like, oh, you got a treat waiting for you, bro. And it's almost like Hollow Knight is tainted by this game. It's almost like Hollow Knight is tainted by this game, because now people are going to see, oh, there's a new one. Yeah, I'll play Hollow Knight. Oh, I loved Hollow Knight. And then they'll play Silksong, and they'll be like, ugh. You know? I think the lore and story part is something the average Silksong player might not care about as much as you too. I'm a lore girly. What can I say? I'm a lore girly. I love the lore, man. I deep dive. I love Vatividya and like 5-hour YouTube explanations. Lore gives impact. Lore gives meaning and memory. Things stick when the lore is good. You know why I don't? You know why? Okay, I really like Katana Zero as a game-ass game. But the story of Katana Zero does not fucking matter. And it's clear, like the story is very basic. It's very clear that the creators of the game, the story is very like forgettable. You know? The gameplay is what matters in that game. The gameplay is what matters. And so when I think of Katana Zero, I think of how fun that game is to play. I don't think of the story. The story's kind of, I barely remember it. I've played that game twice and I barely remember that shit. But it's so fun to play. I keep going like, yeah, I could play that game again. I can't wait for the DLC. You know what I mean? I remember the story of Hollow Knight. I know I beat it at the very beginning of this year, or at the very end of last year, or something like that. I know that it was like, I think it was the beginning of this year. I know that it's fresh in my memory. It hasn't even been a year, right? But I remember it, and I'm probably going to remember it. I'm going to remember it because it was a pretty engaging story. It was novel, It might have. I'm sure there are people out there that are like, no, it's basically just this story, but told with bugs. To me, it was a very unique story, and Silksong was just a rehash. It was just a rehash, man. And it was also one that like didn't care about its own story, and you can really tell. And that's why I had so many like questions, and nobody can really answer me, and all I could do was speculate because I felt like the game didn't give a shit about it either, Or they did, but they didn't know how to tell it right, or they told it, but they told it way too obscure. Like, it's too obscure, and you have to, like, interpret and extrapolate too much, I don't know. Anyway, that's the end of my Silksong segment. The ironic thing is Silksong overall feels like a rushed and bloated game in pretty much every way. Yeah, even though it took longer to make Silksong than it did to make Hollow Knight. I think it only took the guy like 3 years to make Hollow Knight, didn't it? Something like that. Anyway, they cooked with the first game, and then they burned with the second game. And I'm just going to be real. I said this already when I was in my depression arc while fighting Lace 3. I'm never going to play another Team Cherry game again. I don't ever want to talk about Silksong again. I'm not going to play the DLC. Team Cherry has completely lost me. I'm not going to play it ever again. I am probably not going to play Hollow Knight ever again, the original. I don't really want to replay it. I think Silksong is completely killed. I think Silksong has completely killed any interest I had in Hollow Knight. And I'm just going to say, I'm so glad I didn't wait 7 years. I'm so glad I didn't wait 7 years for this game. I only waited like maybe 8 months. I'm so glad I didn't wait 7 years for this game. Imagine waiting 7 years and then feeling this way. Imagine subscribing to the Hollow Knight subreddit and Silk posting and every single Nintendo Direct and every single State of Play and every single Xbox Live and every single everything. I'm waiting for Silksong news. I'm waiting for Silksong news for 7 years. Imagine. I'm following Team Cherry on Twitter, and I'm part of the Hollow Knight Discord where the devs are. And I'm waiting, and I'm talking, and I'm speculating, and I'm lore implicating, and I'm trying, and I'm digging into the Hollow Knight lore, trying to figure out what could Silksong be about. And then I played this game, and I felt this way. I think it would kill me. Like, I think it would kill my love for games. Did you have high hopes for the game before playing it? Very, very much, Harry. I was so happy with Hollow Knight that I was so certain that no matter what Silksong was, I would enjoy it. I remember saying that, actually, when the announcement came out. I joked about it, and I was like, what if Silksong's bad? What if it's bad? What if it's like a shit game? And I remember saying on stream, I think I was playing Link's Awakening, and I was like, what if Silksong's bad? what if it's like a shit game and we waited all this time and all this hype and it's just not a good game? And then here we are. And it's a good game that I think this is what's happening to me is I have never played a game so good and so bad at the same time. That's the problem. I've played shit games. I have played terrible games, and I have played really good games that were kind of like disappointing narratively or disappointing like, oh man, I have to grind in Final Fantasy X. Oh God, you know what I mean? But the game is a masterpiece. The game is a masterpiece, you know? Like bad parts that spoil it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I had really low expectations and was relatively pleasantly surprised when I started liking it. I had 2 days where I thought I am playing a masterpiece. You can ask Howard. I glazed Silksong for a few days. No, I remember, Rink. Don't ask me nothing. No, I remember, Rinka. I remember when you were like coming into chat and you were like, I love it. This game's great. But before you played it, you were like in here and you were like, oh, you convinced me. You convinced me. Bro, Howard's got me muted. You got that shit? You see that shit? Watching without audio. Howard's not even watching my stream, bro. Howard's just like here. It's so weird. I thought it sucked at the beginning. All right, everybody. Well, that's the end of my Silksong segment. That was 2 hours of talking about Skong, and that is the last I'm going to talk about Skong.